Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 25th, 2014 City of Muskegon City Commission meeting. Before we begin, we'd like to invite up Reverend Bill Freeman of Harbor Unitarian Universal Congregation to lead us in prayer, and that will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend Freeman.
Let us lift our spirits. Spirit of love, may we be grateful for the diversity in this city. May we be grateful for the open-mindedness in this city. And may we be grateful for the love in this city and the many forms that may take. We pray that one day all people will enjoy freedom. We pray that one day all people will enjoy equality. And we pray that one day all people will enjoy justice. May we do whatever we can to help this city, this state, this nation, and this world be a better place. And as always, we pray for the safe return of Jessica Herringa, forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Reverend. May we have roll call, please?
Commissioner German,
Here.
Commissioner Rinsema-Sipiga,
Here.
Commissioner Turnquist,
Here.
Commissioner Johnson,
Here.
Mayor Gallman,
Here.
Commissioner Hood,
Here.
Vice Mayor Spataro.
Here.
Thank you. Before we begin, I'd also like to extend our congratulations to the Big Reds on their state championship, taking the state basketball title. And we will be fetching them on the 8th of April, correct, Ann?
We will be inviting them, yes.
Okay. And hopefully we'll be seeing them all in person and have a bit of a celebration. Okay, we have the consent agenda, please.
Approval of minutes, City Clerk, summary request to approve minutes of the March 10th Commission Work Session meeting and the March 11th City Commission meeting. Staff recommendation, approval of the minutes. 2014 dozer rental for beach leveling, Public Works, summary request. Staff is requesting permission to enter into a rental agreement with Contractors Rental Corporation out of Grand Rapids, Michigan for a John Deere 850K WLT cab dozer for leveling sand at Pure Marquette Beach. Staff recommendation, approve the request. Pothole wagon, Public Works, summary request. Authorize staff to purchase one 4-ton asphalt pothole wagon from Falcon Road Maintenance Equipment, the Michigan Deal state contract holder. This machine will replace the 2000 model that we had to retire from service due to safety issues. Staff recommendation, authorize staff to purchase one 4-ton Falcon pothole wagon. Rezoning request for the properties located at 2306 and 2320 South Getty Street, Planning Economic Development. Summary request. Request to rezone the properties at 2306 and 2320 South Getty Street from B4 General Business District to I2 General Industrial District by Port City Architectural Signage. The company, which is located adjacent to these properties, would like to expand their business and utilize the existing building on site. Staff recommendation, staff recommends approval of the rezoning. Committee recommendation, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the request at their March 13th meeting. Muskegon Fire Department fire apparatus and equipment request for a 2014 Spartan Metro Star Custom Chassis Fire Engine, Public Safety. Summary request. The Director of Public Safety requests that the Commission authorize the amount of $545,678 to purchase a 2014 Spartan Metro Star Custom Chassis Fire Engine with related tools and equipment. This truck purchase request is to replace the aging, unserviceable reserve engine that is now in service and supports our fleet of frontline fire engines. Our current reserves engines are 20 years old. Mechanical problems, deteriorating suspension, and visible rust plagues both reserve fire engines. This selection and request to purchase was achieved by submitting apparatus specifications to Houston Galveston Area Council, which procures competitive pricing for governmental units, saving the city $2,000 plus staff hours to research. In addition to the new fire apparatus, the purchase is completed with selected diagnostic tools and maintenance equipment to service this new truck and the 3 other Spartan engines that now provides fire services to our city. Staff recommendation, staff recommends approval of this purchase with a final cost of $539,350. Heritage Square Development LLC loan from city, planning economic development, summary request. The Heritage Square Development project began several years ago with the construction of 4 townhouses. However, the project stalled with the recent recession. In an effort to jumpstart the project, city staff has been working with owner Gary Post on financing options. An agreement has been reached to loan Mr. Post $500,000 from the city's Economic Development Fund for the construction of 2 townhouses just to the west of the existing 4 units. Mr. Post has signed a letter agreeing to the loan construction and repayment. In addition, a home loan is being considered for one of 4 new condo units that will be built on the corner of Clay and Second over 4 commercial units. Staff recommendation to authorize staff and the city attorney to proceed with the necessary documents to complete the loan transaction with Mr. Post for the construction of 2 townhouses at Heritage Square, final approval of documents by City Commission, as well as to complete the documents and seek approval through the Citizens District Council and City Commission for use of home funds for 1 condo unit, total of 4 to be built over the commercial unit at the corner of Clay and Second.
Thank you. Commissioners, you've heard the consent agenda presented. Are there any items you wish to have removed for further consideration? Vice Mayor?
Item F, Frank.
Item F. If no others, I'll entertain a motion for acceptance of the consent agenda.
I move we accept the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Rinzema-Sabinga, seconded by Commissioner Jordan, to accept the consent agenda as presented, minus item F. Any discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Commissioner Rinzema-Sabinga?
Yes.
Commissioner Turnquist?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Gowron?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Spataro?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item F, Vice Mayor?
Thank you. So we may begin discussion. I would move that we authorize staff and the city attorney to proceed with the necessary documents to complete the loan transaction with Mr. Post for the construction of the 2 townhouses at Heritage Square, as well as to complete the documents and seek approval through the Citizen District Council for the use of home funds for the 1 condo unit out of 4 to be built over the commercial buildings at the corner of Clay and Second.
Support. It's been moved by the Vice Mayor, supported by Commissioner Turnquist, to authorize staff and the city attorney to proceed with the necessary documents to complete the loan transaction with Mr. Post for the construction of 2 townhouses at Heritage Square, with final approval of documents by the City Commission, as well as to complete the documents and seek approval through the Citizens District Council and City Commission for the use of home funds for 1 condo unit with a total of 4 to be built over the commercial unit at the corner of Clay and Second. Discussion. Vice Mayor?
I'd like to hear a staff report on this, and then I'm sure everybody has lots of questions. So.
Sure, I'll start out. I also would like to say that Gary Post is in the audience this evening, and I'm sure he would be happy to answer any questions specifically on the development. We all are familiar with the Heritage Square development and the fact that it did get started, and then we had the recession hit, and it's kind of been in flux. We also know that it's very difficult to get traditional financing for these types of projects, and actually with the city manager and myself and Onita Bailey from Community and Neighborhood Services are trying to come up with creative ways where maybe we can help jumpstart this particular project. And we do have our economic development money that has not, we've been holding on to it for the last few years, and thought this would be a good way to spend that to get a project really going again. And from what I understand, Mr. Post actually has additional, just the fact that this is kind of out there again, that something's going on there, interest from people in the property, which is a good thing. And we will be paid back, and the hope would be we could reuse it again for something similar somewhere else in the future. So that's really where the idea came from, and it would include the $500,000 would go for 2 more of the traditional townhouses that are similar to the ones you see there today. And then on the corner, which was always the plan that Mr. Post had for the project, was that it will wrap around the corner, and there would be the 4 retail or office building areas on the first floor, and then residential over that. So those will be smaller condos, and that's what we would look to use the community and neighborhood services or the home funds for one of those units. The other 3 would be market rate.
Okay. Any other questions?
I'll let Mr. Spataro, because
Okay,
I think I know what he's going to ask.
Well, I mean, and I'm just going to ask them one question, because I'm sure we all have similar questions, and everybody should have their opportunity. I think one of the concerns that comes out of there is, given our budget situation, where is this money being drawn from, and what is the expected term for the payback? I mean, how many years before we see this money paid back for future use?
Well, the money will come from the dollars that SAPI gave us for economic development, so it won't come out of the general fund. They gave us $500,000, and that was a couple years ago. So the same $500,000 remains there in principal, plus a little bit of interest that was accrued on that, maybe $515,000-ish, or it would be in that fund now. So it wouldn't come out of anything that we've been drawing on to operate. And the thought process from my standpoint was, at some point, we're gonna use that money permanently. We're gonna build a bridge or a road, or we're gonna do something where we don't have return on investment. And my thought process was, in the meantime, while we wait for that need to come, instead of waiting 2 or 3 years and letting it sit in the bank longer, what we would do is try to find somewhere we can reinvest it multiple times over that period of time and maybe get kind of more bang for our buck out of it over the long run. The goal would be to repay back, though, when the units sell. So once sellers are found, maybe they're found within a matter of weeks or a matter of months, but once they're sold, once they're moved on to a new buyer, we would have the money available to either do something new with, maybe something similar, or whatever the commission desires to do with that money again on the second time around.
And I'll just add, part of the agreement is that the funds must be expended by December 31st of this year, so that we will see it happen right away. And I'm sure that the owner can answer this better than I can, but I think there is a lot of interest in that property, and we've heard of people that have been interested in the property but don't have it available now, and they want to move in now, and so they've had to look elsewhere. And I think in this case, it is a case of if he builds it, they will come.
Commissioner Turnquist?
Yeah, I think it's a terrific idea, jump-starting that, and it's a good use of that money. I'm just wondering, I thought Larry might ask, can we have in this package the completion of the sidewalk from one end down to the other end?
Yeah,
So it's not partial?
I think it's written in there that was our expectation, that the sidewalks.
It will be completed. Good.
It was in the loan agreement.
Commissioner Rinzman-Sevinga?
I just have a question. In the letter, it mentions a term sheet, and then it mentions loan documents. Is the materials in the packet, it says memorandum of terms and conditions, is that the term sheet?
Yes. The loan documents will be multiple inches thick and have not been finalized yet.
Okay,
Think about it in the context of a commercial loan, you know.
okay.
We want your permission to move forward before we have all of that completed.
Okay. And I understand it's from the Economic Development Fund, but I don't think that there's any interest that's going to be charged?
No. Quick turnover is what we're hoping for.
Yeah, and that was my question now. My question was, okay, we're loaning money and not getting any return back. And we do this, how many more investors may come and requesting the same thing? Is this the first time that the city's done this, or just to try to jumpstart a project?
You know, I'm not sure if it's the first time,
No.
but, and I'm not sure what we've done in the past, but from my standpoint, the reason that was enticing to me, whether we made money on the initial investment or not, the goal was to see the project kind of get get punched in the arm and get started again. I think that's what we look at as our benefit, not necessarily a couple $1,000s maybe of interest payments. But that was more the goal. The goal wasn't to make money on it. We've been doing that in the bank right now, making a little on it. I think we get more out of it if we see some bricks and mortar, at the end of the day, and see that project done and get people excited about what's going on downtown. It's kind of the thought process.
Commissioner Hood?
On the, I guess, question would be to Mr. Post also, but when they start construction of the property, is there any stipulations in the loan contract of hiring from within the city? And is there an affirmative action type of clause in that also?
I don't think we've gotten that far yet to where we have that in there. If that's something that the commission is really interested in, we could try to incorporate something like that in there. My guess is that the owner has, he's built 4 other ones in the past, and my guess is he's planning on following the same program that he followed on the other 4, but he might be able to answer that question better. It's where the labor comes from.
Okay.
Might already be local labor plan, if you want to add color on that.
Mr. Post, if you'd like to come forward, and I just need your name and address, Gary.
Gary Post, reside at 272 West Clay as part of the Heritage Square development. In the past, my focus has been previously with Muskegon Construction and now with our own developments to focus on local contractors. We work hard to engage those in the projects that we work on, and I think we've been quite successful with that in the past here as well. Have a great relationship with Weber Lumber, who supplies all of the building products for the project. Barrett Plumbing has been the plumbing contractor that we've used. Bishop Heating on the HVAC. We work hard to work with local smaller contractors on things like roofing and siding and that type of thing as well. So our focus is to employ local people as much as possible on the projects, and I think we've had a pretty good track record of that in the past as well.
Commissioner?
I just have a question about the loan amount. So it's for $500,000. I'm not sure why it was raised from $350 to $500. It looks like that was a previous amount that was discussed. And then I just want to clarify, because it's a loan, so I think we don't really care much how it's spent as long as it's repaid. It says in the documents what it's going to go for. But if the units don't sell for the price to make up the money, we're still going to get paid the principal we're loaning, correct?
Correct. If you want to know, as far as the change, actually, when we had our initial conversations, we discussed that $500,000 amount, and then somewhere in the creation of loan documents, it came out as $350,000. But initially, my expectation was that we had the full $500,000 potentially could be available, and really what it depended on were the size of the units that Mr. Post was going to build. And he's building a larger one and then a little bit smaller one. And if I remember right, and Gary, you could probably answer this, I want to say the combined sale prices were closer to $600,000 maybe.
Yeah, I think part of the logic was that the cost or the sale price for the 2 units, the one is listed at $325 and the other's at $235, correct, Mary? And so the truth is, again, as I've explained to Mr. Peterson and Kathy as well, with this particular development, we do not have a lot of profit built into the development, and that's because of some of the tax credit programs and stuff that we were awarded. So that essentially is pretty much the cost of building the units. So I expect that we'll likely have even a little bit more in to build the units than what the loan is going to cover. And our goal, by the way, is certainly to turn these around as quickly as we can and get the money repaid to the city, and that's why Mary's here. She's all pumped and ready to go with that as well.
Very good. Commissioner?
I understand you probably have your contractors already, but will there be jobs for anyone else?
During the construction?
Yes.
Certainly, there will. Sort of a rule of thumb, I could anticipate that, spread across the board, that probably 35 to 40% of the cost, will be in labor. Whether that's for mechanical work or electrical or framing or whatever the case might be. And so, if you want to take, $500,000 worth of work cost to build the units, you could, I think, reasonably assume that close to $200,000 of that is going to go into labor of some sort, to the various contractors. So, there will be jobs certainly created as part of the development too.
How would you solicit those bids? And how would, contractors, get in contact with you? Would you advertise that, or would you let the city know, or?
We're always open. We operate, Port City Construction will be the contractor that does the work, and we're all available. A good share of the work, again, as I mentioned, we have some preferred contractors that we work with. We know what they're capable of. They treat us fairly, and not everything goes out, for competitive bids, but there's other factors that we like to weigh in when we make those decisions. But we're happy to talk to anybody that might be interested in working on these projects.
If I could, and I wonder if this might help with the question I think you're trying to ask, is the city has, and has worked out well, because I was just talking to Duane about this process or what we have. I think we have a list of contractors that might be considered disadvantaged or minority owned or woman owned. Maybe we can make sure that he has that available to him to see if there are some contractors on there that he might be able to utilize. We try to utilize a certain number of them in our projects as well. And I think that's maybe what you were getting at,
Right.
is we have some contractors that we like to make sure that we at least make sure that you might have access to see if they could do the job for you or help you with the job. And we get that list.
That'd be great.
And the reason for me asking that, because I talk to a lot of contractors and minority contractors, and when they do solicit bids, they feel that they don't have a fair opportunity to get certain jobs. So, we have, we're basically the mouthpiece for them, and we have to ask, the builders or whoever to make sure we get some clearance on it as well. So thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else for Mr. Foltz?
Yeah.
No? Well, thank you, Gary. Oh, one more. I'm sorry. Mr. Johnson.
Kathy indicated that there's some interest was drummed up recently on the news of this. How serious of interest is that? Are they looking to move forward on a separate parcel perhaps, or have they indicated that like to begin the process for a purchase agreement, or what's the strength of that interest more recently and months prior going into this?
We don't have, well, let me back up, I guess. As most of us know, I mean, the housing industry in particular, the economy in general, has struggled here the last few years. And, and as I think Kathy alluded to making the introductions, that's affected us, no doubt, as well. I think most of you are aware that we broke ground on this project in the spring of 2008, and it was less than 6 months later when most of us pretty much recognized the bottom fell out of the market, and that's impacted us. I had one spec house, one unit there as a spec unit for a couple of years, and we finally found a buyer for that, and they're loving it down there as well. But because of all that, I wasn't anxious to build any more spec units, and again, with all due respect to our lender friends here in Muskegon, it's still tough, to borrow the money that's needed for a project. So I simply, look at this as a very generous offer, by the city to help provide some construction financing to get a couple more units built. One of the criticisms, so to speak, that we've received over the last year or two is the fact that we haven't had, a spec house, a spec unit to show. And I think that there's some truth to that. People are more likely to show interest to follow up to purchase a unit if they know they can move in, sooner than maybe 6 to 8 months that it might take to build a unit. And so I think having a couple of units to show, and again, showing progress on this development will generate a lot of interest. And we've already gotten some good feedback, from a number of prospective clients. Don't have any reservations, at this time, but that obviously is something, if this is approved, that we'll go to work on. I think, again, things are changing in the housing market. I think most municipalities, I suspect is the same here in Muskegon, are seeing an uptick in building permits in residential units. And we just want to be able to capitalize on that, take advantage of that as well. And we see this as a real shot in the arm to help us do that downtown.
Prior to your discussions with Frank about this loan, had you approached any banks in the community recently, within, say, the last 6 months to a year on traditional financing of doing a spec unit or two? And no luck? Have you, since speaking with Frank, have you talked to them about the possibility of the city coming up with half of the money, say $125,000, and getting traditional financing, leveraging that to get traditional financing for the other half?
Since
so
this has come up,
do 4 units instead of 2, with the same
since this is
maximized bang for the buck.
Since this has come up, I've had meetings with 3 different local bankers. I'm meeting again with one tomorrow. I've introduced the concept, the project to them. Again, there's 2 parts to this, and what you're approving now is the next 2 townhomes. There's still what we call the corner module, which is even a much larger investment as well. And that's where I'm trying to work with the local banks to have them help finance this. And again, if they know the city's on board to help build the next 2 townhomes, I think it makes it much more attractive to them as well to help us out, with the corner units. So that's where I'm working, with the local banks to help with that portion of the development.
One of the things that I'm hoping will come out of this, which is why we were so interested in doing the 2 of them, is once we have 2 of them built and 2 of them sold, all of a sudden we have something that the banks can use and lenders can use as far as at least recent past history for as far as sales go, for appraisals and stuff like that. And that's kind of going to be the hard part. Is right now the sales are 2008, so they're a little stale, so to speak. The market's changed since then, but we can help get a couple built, get some true sales out there, so people will see what they're going to appraise for, what they're going to sell for, and that will probably help make the funding on 2 future ones or 6 future ones, wherever that be, a lot easier once we have that. Once we have that on paper, that people are willing to pay X number of dollars for these, and hopefully the full $500,000 for the 2 or maybe more. And that should help with the same financing that he's talking about. But I think we recognize as city staff that these 2, in addition to, I'm guessing, substantial investment on those corner modules, those will probably be more expensive because of the handicap accessibility and the commercial build out and stuff like that. My guess is that's going to leverage quite a bit of the quite a bit of the resources of Mr. Post and the bank on those corner units. But if this was strictly about 2 townhouses and not about the corner units, my guess is we probably would have been a little bit different on how we went about it. But just knowing that there's more to it, to the project, it made sense to go after just the 2 units now. And then the 4 the corner module, I guess is what he's calling it, over the next couple of weeks.
Commissioner Turnquist?
I once asked a business owner why he can't build one of his units in Muskegon. And his answer came back, said, I can't get financing for Muskegon. If I did it in Norton Shores or North Muskegon, I could get it. And we have the experience of our city manager who had the same difficulty in getting financing for his home. There's money available outside of Muskegon, so I think you're running into the same ground rules, that it's just harder to get money in our city. And yet we're very confident that it's going to get good, it's going to get better.
My wife and I have been here for 5 years, better than that now, and we're hoping the same thing. And I'm confident that it will be. And I don't know that it's necessarily unique to Muskegon. What we're doing is a condominium development. They fell somewhat into disfavor over the last few years for a number of reasons. That's turning around a little bit, but again, banks have a very specific set of rules typically that they look at, that guides their lending practices, and what we're doing is a little bit out of the box, for some of them. So this again would be a huge boost for us.
Commissioner?
Thanks for answering all the questions. I think we've had a lot of information. I think it's a good project. I think downtown residential is a really important part of rebuilding our downtown, and I think our downtown is an economic development project, so it's an economic development fund. I think it's a good use of the funds, and I think we should go forward.
That's my
Mayor?
last question. Who came up with the design of your house? Was it you, or you hired a local architect?
I knew what concept I wanted to try, and then I have actually a family friend of mine that he and I go back probably over 40 years, and his whole life has been in custom home building, and between the two of us, we came up with a design that we thought fit, and he's the one that's actually put it on paper, and will continue to do that as well. So.
Vice Mayor?
Oh. No, I was just going to say, it kind of reminded me of some of the brownstones in New York.
That was the idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, it was 12 years ago that this body agreed to contribute economic development funds, in that case, from the money left from SPX when they left town, and joined together with the Community Foundation, the Paul C. Johnson Foundation, the Chamber of Commerce to form the Downtown Muskegon Development Corporation and put a bid in on the mall. This is a much smaller project, but on the other hand, I hate to think where we would have been if the mall had been sitting empty for years, creating a blight instead of an opportunity for growth. We tend to focus in this community too much on the blank canvas and seem to miss what's actually taken place. And you look at the new buildings that have been constructed, of which on the mold site there's 7. The buildings that have been renovated and occupied, I think that was a good investment. And even in situations where we've given tax breaks or tax advantages for the short term, in the long term, that increases the tax base, which increases the revenue to pay for everyone's police and fire and road repair. And it brings more people into the community to support the local businesses. So I think when you look at it in that perspective, that this is a reasonable action for us to take. I am confident that with a couple of new units that we'll see the money back and put into some other use in the very near future. So I'm willing to take the risk, I guess.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor. Anything else before we take a vote? Well, thank you, Gary. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Turnquist?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Mayor Galvin?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Spataro?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Rinsa-Massibiga?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Very good. We'll move forward now. Public hearings, please.
Issuance of a commercial rehabilitation certificate for 500 West Western Avenue, Planning Economic Development. Summary request. Pursuant to Public Act 210 of 2005 as amended, 500 West Western Avenue LLC has requested the issuance of a commercial rehabilitation certificate. The City Commission approved the creation of the Commercial Rehabilitation District on August 27, 2013. The certificate will freeze the taxable value of the building and exempt the new real property investment from local taxes. The school operating tax and the state education tax are still levied on the new investment. The company will be investing over $385,000 in the building and will create up to 60 jobs, which qualifies them for an abatement of 10 years. Staff recommendation, establishment of the commercial rehabilitation certificate.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Franchik.
Good evening. This project is going into the building on Western, commonly referred to as the Noble Building. It's currently the home to Pigeon Hill Brewing, which just opened last weekend. There will also be a pizza place that will be going in soon after construction is finalized. And there will also be a room in the back for rent. We have Chris Nass here, who is the project manager for the project, if you have any questions.
Okay. So we're basically completing a process that we began last year now that things are moving forward. We created the district, so now we're looking at
Yes, the first step is to...
issuing of the certificate.
First step is to create the district, and then the county gets a month to review it, and then they can apply for the certificate, and that's where we are now.
Very good, very good. Thank you. Hi, Chris.
Good evening.
Hi, if we just have your name and address.
Christopher Nass, my address is 3277 North Star Street, Muskegon, Michigan.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Want to just draw a thumbnail of how things have been going, and then we can open this up to any questions from the commission.
Yes, things have been progressing a little slower than anticipated originally with the project, but things are definitely moving along well now that Pigeon Hill opened up for the first time last
Right.
weekend. We've signed, or a letter of intent has been signed for the space across the hallway there to Top Shelf Pizza. They presently have their location on Apple Avenue, so he's looking to open up a second one. Spoke to Jim Noel, the owner there of Top Shelf. He's looking to have a somewhat June 1st opening date he'd like to have for the pizzeria. And that's underway right now. We have met just the last week. I got a meeting scheduled again this Friday to get some of the drawings going that are required to put the hood system in the kitchen, because that's going to be the biggest, most important thing that we're working on. And then also at the same time, we have a large room. It's a little over, I think, 1,200, 1,300 square feet in the, what would that be, the northwest corner of the building, that has a nice view of the lake, that we're going to make a banquet room facility out of. And that's the plans. And then we're also going to finish that off, we're going to construct a deck out the back of the building there that can be utilized with that banquet room. And then there'll be a fourth entity yet on the main floor that there's talk about, but no ideas have been set in stone. So when it's all done and said, that the whole top floor will have 4 different entities. The basement is set up, and it will be remain that way for office space. And I need to get the actual hood that's downstairs out of there before I actually start, showing that to prospective office, people that would be interested in renting any office space down there.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Mr. Nall? Commissioner Johnson?
What was the delay in getting the certificate, applying for the certificate?
Well, I know the permit was pulled to start construction, I think it was June or July of last year. And it's just, the biggest delay is when we first took on the project and presented to the city, we didn't think we'd had fire suppression, wasn't really required. Our first meeting originally, the fire marshal wasn't available. So we were going on the assumption that with the architectural drawings from Hooker to Long that were done, that we did not need fire suppression. Come to find out later that it was asked that we have that added to the building. And so that's kind of changed everything for us.
Let me clarify. So the district, the commercial rehab district was established in late August, and as Mr. Francis said, there was a month to then go to the county, and then after that you could apply for certification. I'm wondering why you didn't apply at the beginning of this month when you could first initiate your application last fall.
That I'm not sure of. I'm not in control of all of this paperwork, so I don't have an answer, for that. Of what the delay was, or the timeline of things.
Okay. Now the application itself says that all these investments in the rehab will pursue henceforth.
Yes.
But a significant portion of it's already been completed. Correct?
Yes. Yes.
So you need to do Suite 1 next door to Pigeon Hill, which is going to be the pizzeria.
That's correct.
As part of it. How much remainder investment do you have left to doing rehab? The original value is $365,000. How much left do you foresee investing?
Well, fire suppression, by the time all that was done and said, was probably, well, the initial was 35, but by the time you add the alarm system and all those other things that weren't in the initial bid, we're probably 50,000 of it was there. The bulk of the project is projected in the last suite that we were talking was going to be well over probably 150. But like I say, that hasn't been determined exactly what. There's just been talk about. So that between the biggest investment still that remains will be the restaurant itself with the hood system and all the cooler systems and stuff like that we're going to be, because McGrath Park LLC is going to purchase those, and that won't be part of Top Shelf's. So that'd be something that, for instance, if Top Shelf unfortunately wouldn't be able to, stay in business there, that those things would remain.
It's part of the real property.
Exactly, as part of the property. That would be owned by the building. And then the other suite, there was talking of, the other suite there hasn't been any demolition done to the other suite, so there's a lot more demolition that would have to be done to that fourth suite and the final suite. But I know we're kind of in a similar boat that we've been talking. I myself haven't. The managing member, Mr. Kordecki of the LLC, has been talking to local banks and trying to talk about getting some financing for that idea of that fourth suite. And that's where we're talking in $150,000 range for the potential of redeveloping that fourth and final suite.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
I don't have any questions, but I think, commercial rehabs are hard to do in existing buildings, and I think this is one of the tools available to the city and to developers, so I think it's a good use of this tool, and we should go for it. I think that the initial job on Pigeon Hill is really nice, and I think that hopefully that continues, and we have a building that's getting more, retail, entertainment use downtown. So.
Most definitely.
Anything else? Commissioner?
The purpose of an abatement, such as the commercial rehab certification, is to spur and foster investment, rehab, redevelopment. Now, in this case, 501 Western LLC already had that incentive. The market already demanded that space and it being rehabbed. So there was a need for it, and they're going to a lease has already been signed, versus the application said that a lease wasn't going to be signed until after the certificate was done. The investment wasn't going to happen until after the certificate is done. It's already been white boxed. We already have a business in there. I'm not saying, I'd love to see our city be business friendly, but it seems like, and maybe Kathy can expound or Mr. Francis can expound on why proper procedures weren't being followed with this certification, why investments happening prior to the certification, whereas the abatement is intended to spur investment itself. It's not a huge amount of money that we're talking about here. No, it's the principle of it, though. And the fact that just in 2009, the SEV for that property was significantly higher than what it actually was in 2013 and what the projected increase for 2014 is. So your SEV is actually going to be lower. Projected SEV is actually going to be lower than it was just a few years ago. So you're still not spending as much as you were a few years ago. I'm just having a hard time with the fact that these investments have already happened and you're coming after the fact for an abatement, whereas the abatement is intended to spur the investment.
I think we let Mike explain that, because I think the way the process works is it's set up to, the state law is set up to allow this exact same thing that you're concerned about.
Yeah.
It's set up to allow exactly that to happen.
I just wanted to touch on the delay in the application. The state does allow up to 6 months after the project has started to apply for the certificate, and that's not uncommon. I believe the past 3 or 4 of these that we've done have come in around the 5 or 6 month mark. And sometimes the reason is cost change, like you said. The fire suppressant has changed, so sometimes the budget gets out of whack and they want to make sure that they have everything in order before they apply. And in terms of the company being assured that they need the certificate to move in, while they did not get the certificate 6 months ago, they were assured that the establishment of the district would be in place, and then they would have the 6 months to apply for the certificate.
So it does follow procedure, and we've had these before.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think probably in projects like this, the developer comes and talks to the city, and the city gives them available options for abatements or whatever. So I'm sure this was talked about before the project was purchased.
Correct.
That's typical. It seems like there's nothing strange about the timeline.
Anything else, Commissioners? Commissioner Johnson?
To clarify, you say 6 months, but actually the building permit on this project was pulled prior to 6 months ago. It was pulled in May of 2013. So we're already exceeding the 6-month window.
The state goes by when the contractor actually starts the work. We've ran into this last year when we did the industrial facilities tax exemptions, and the building permits were pulled 6 months prior. As long as the contractor can attest that they did not start the project until the 6 months, even though the building permits were pulled, then the state still allows it.
So my eyes deceived me that the work that was done in July of last year, I mean, we all saw work being done on that building in July of last year. That wasn't done by a contract, that was part of the building permit. The one that closed just 2 weeks ago, March 14th, for that building permit was closed March 14th, and then the white box permit was closed March 19th. So no work was done. You can attest to that? No? Do we have an affidavit from the contractor?
I'm not sure exactly when the building permits were closed out. I don't have that information.
Mm-hmm. My concern, I want our city to be business friendly, and I want to spur investment. However, I know that there's this perception among some that it's not really exactly the merit of your case, but it sometimes falls down to who you know in the city and the connections that you have in the city, and some people are favored versus others. And I don't want that to be coming across here when you're not following proper procedure, or at least there's the appearance of not following proper procedure, considering the application stating that the investment would happen henceforth, that a lease would happen henceforth, when it was happening already prior to it, and the 6-month window hadn't happened. I know it's not a huge amount of money that we're talking about here, but I think it's important that the city safeguards any potential resources for the city, especially as the neighbor next door, we're considering doing a potential form of utility subsidy to LC Walker next door, which, keeping that open, definitely spurs business for surrounding commercial entities. So it's kind of difficult when we're handing out money to this one business and then we're not getting the proper, the full account of taxes from the business next door that would benefit from getting this subsidy. So we're kind of handing out money and not getting what we should be getting.
Yes, Mayor?
Yeah, I certainly understand where you're coming from, and I know that they did some demolition work before they pulled permits, and then they pulled their permits and finished the demolition work. So there was activity in that building at the time frame you're talking about, but I don't believe they actually started construction until later. I happen to know the gentleman who is Mr. Kordecki because he lives in Glenside when he's in town, and my mother knows him. That's what happens when you live in a town that's not really all that big. And quite honestly, he was rather frustrated about having to go through the permitting process and all that. And the city got that worked out, and I think we're seeing a positive project here. So I would think from Mr. Kordecki's standpoint, it was hardly the red carpet treatment from his perspective. And I think we need to be aware of that. Sometimes, we're just doing the things that they're supposed to be done, and the perception from the other side is that we're being uncooperative or we're making things unnecessarily difficult. I listen in those situations, and when the project's moving successfully, that's where I leave it. I will want to bring one other point up, though. Let's not conflate apples and oranges here. This was a building that had lost most of its tenants, needed some TLC. There had been some discussion about demolition at various points. Lord knows we've lost too many of our historic buildings downtown as it is. And in this situation, we now have a building that's occupied, renovated, and is generating not only property tax revenue, but also the fees associated with a beverage establishment and the employees' income taxes and so on. It is now creating an economic benefit, both in revenue to the city and in economic activity for the rest of this part of the downtown. This abatement makes that a little bit more attractive for this developer to continue and sends a message to other developers that we're willing to work with them using the tools that are available to us through the state of Michigan to try to make their projects as successful as possible. Trust me, our competitors around West Michigan use every tool in the toolbox. When somebody new comes to town and they're looking, do we want to be in Holland or Muskegon or Wyoming or wherever? So that is where we are with this. The issue with the Walker Arena, that is a city-owned, well, city-operated facility. That's ours. That's our property. We pay a fee for somebody else to manage it for us. That management fee hasn't changed in a long time. So that is a very different situation than what we're talking about with assisting somebody doing an economic development project. And we can discuss the merits of the arena, but I would not want to get those two things blurred, because to my mind, it's apples and oranges, and I really think we need to be careful that we don't draw too big a net when we're talking about some of these things. This project, I think we can all see with our own eyes. They're doing what they said they were going to do. The state says we can offer this incentive for them to continue and to incentivize others who want to do this. I think we ought to support it and leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I think in terms of like the commercial rehabilitation certificate, I think that the planning department, when I used to work downtown, I mean, anyone who showed any interest in a building and it qualified for something like a commercial rehabilitation certificate was offered it. So I don't think that I think that every business who is eligible for that is being offered that. So I don't see the favoritism of businesses. I think if you're talking about different types of businesses, but if you're strictly talking about owning a commercial building in a commercial rehabilitation zone, I think that it's fairly applied.
So my question is now that we've covered all this, has proper protocol been followed? As Commissioner Johnson stated, when we give out these abatements and, meeting timelines and pulling permits, some businesses are somewhat seem like favored because it's who you know, and a lot of times it does have some influence on whether we pass, the request or not. So I just wanted to make sure that we're clear, everyone's on the same page, and that all protocols have been followed and met.
Yes,
for
yes,
this
to my
establishment.
knowledge, everything has been met. Everybody is offered this incentive anytime a developer talks to us beforehand, or anytime they come in the door, they have a list of incentives that we do offer to anybody who wants to redevelop in the city. I think the one question comes in here is the timeline, and that is something I did check into. From what I saw from the building department, the permits were not issued until, I believe, July or August. But just because they were issued, that does not mean that the project has necessarily commenced. And to my knowledge, I don't know exactly when every little thing on every building happens, and if they're attesting to it starting on October 18th, and that's good enough for the state without seeing any building permits, then that's usually how we follow as well.
Okay, one other question. Okay, now, would that create room for, if for some reason we didn't accept or denied someone else, from a legal standpoint, could that come back to the commission, legal counsel, to say, well, you did it for this business and didn't do it for ours, and during the same timeline?
May I?
Yes, please.
Okay.
No, but I think there's a couple things to keep in mind. A decision by this body to deny a certificate does give the applicant the right to appeal that decision. The decision whether to create a district or not is solely within your discretion. So remember, it's a two-step process with very different appeal rights by the applicants. It is always within your discretion as to whether or not to grant a certificate or not. To my recollection, I don't remember the city commission, however, ever turning anyone down on a certificate, any sort of IFT certificate. If there is, I'll be happy to be corrected, but I sure don't remember one. Now, there may have been some that have never gotten to you for a variety of reasons, but never that I can remember.
We instituted this policy back in 2008, I believe, when the state made it available again. And I believe this is our 7th one, and to my knowledge, they've all been approved.
Commissioner Turnquist?
You know, twice tonight now, it's been inferred that you get what you get because you know someone. And if any of us ever have people making that accusation, it's our obligation to find out, what are you talking about? Who was involved? What's the situation? And we have an obligation to bring that to the right authority. I don't like to think that we operate that way, and I know it happens in many municipalities, but I've heard it now that we play favors for some and not for others. And if we hear that, any of us, we have an obligation to report that.
As I sit here tonight, my fellow commissioners, I have no doubt that this would not be before us if the planning department had not done due diligence, and they would not be bringing anything hinky before us, and they haven't in 12 years that I've sat up here. And I have full confidence in the credibility of Kathy Brubaker-Clark and Mike Franczyk and the remainder of the staff at planning. And if it wasn't all above board, we certainly wouldn't have it been, considering it tonight. It wouldn't be before us if there was any problems or if there was anything underhanded, because that's not the way our staff operates.
I'd just like to add, I think, whether the work commenced, I think we should go with the permits. I don't think we really want to get into that. We hear that all the time. And I don't think we investigate every occurrence, and we certainly can't go back in time and look what happened. I think generally this project falls within the timelines, and I can't remember this close attention being paid to the building permits and other certificates. I think it's certainly not unreasonable. So I think we should just move forward with this.
Thank you. Commissioner?
I agree with you, Commissioner Turnquist, that anything unseemly should be brought to the attention as our obligation. And for the record, I'm not accusing staff of doing anything unseemly or playing favorites. My comment was that there is the perception among some in the community that that occurs, and that we should be vigilant against that perception and fight it wherever possible. And the timeline does not match up, unfortunately. The building permits, I contacted Safe Build, and the building permits were issued in May of 2013. I saw construction happening in July. It's documented online. You can see that. So that's what I'm pushing back against. And the fact that abatements, yes, there's a 6-month window, but the whole purpose of abatements is to spur investment, spur development. It's not a reward for after the fact of, okay, you came forward and you built this, you rehabbed that, and here's your reward as a form of corporate welfare. It's meant to spur that commercial activity. And so that's what I like to see. It just irks me a bit when the work and the investment's already been happening because the market bears it. The market needs that to happen. There's that demand. And so I don't see the reason for us to give up the potential tax revenues for us to grow.
Mr. Mayor, I think everybody's had an opportunity to make their point. This is a public hearing. We do have many members of the public as well as other items on the agenda, so I would ask that we move the public hearing along and invite the public to make their comments so that we can take action on this item.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public that would like to address this issue? If not, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Vice Mayor?
I would move that we close the public hearing and establish the commercial rehabilitation certificate for 500 West Western Avenue.
Second.
It has been moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Hood, to close the public hearing and approve the creation of the Commercial Rehabilitation District for 500 West Western Avenue. Discussion?
Just a final point, I think that they started the discussions about the abatement probably before the person purchased the building. I think that it's not a reward, it was part of the project. So I think that that's how it was. That's how it was seen from the beginning, and the process to get there has been what it is. I think we should award the certificate.
Ms. Brubaker-Clark?
Thank you. Yes, thank you for saying that, Commissioner. I just wanted to make that clear, especially for the newer commissioners, how that works. It is true, when they first came to us, we always talk about what's available, what might work better than something else. They usually make a decision at that point to move forward based on what we reasonably think they can get. Now, we always do say, it's ultimately up to the city commission. We can never promise, but it looks like a project that we've done before. We don't foresee any issues. And so just the fact that they're moving forward, having talked to us, and I don't know at what point they actually got it in. I will also say that Mike works diligently with anybody that we're working with to talk with them and say, okay, where are you in the project? You got your district, but now you got to get your certificate in. So it's an ongoing conversation that our staff is having with any of these developers. So again, I just want to say that it wasn't something after the fact they thought they wanted. They came into the project expecting to get something, even though we couldn't tell them 100% until they go through this process.
Okay. Anything else,
Thank you.
Commissioners? If not, roll call, please.
Just one last.
Oh, one last thing.
One last comment.
One last thing.
I appreciate the city using every tool in the kit to spur investment. I'm unfortunately going to have to say no on this certificate on the principle of in the timeline. However, I would be completely in favor of approving the certificate for investment from this day forward and 6 months back. But I know the timeline does not conform with the application, so I cannot vote in favor of it.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Johnson?
No.
Mayor Gallren?
Yes.
Commissioner Hood?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Spataro?
Yes.
Commissioner German?
Yes.
Commissioner Rinsa-Massipica?
Yes.
Commissioner Turnquist?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Hey, Chris.
Thank you.
New business, please.
Approval of sale of city-owned home at 1500 Leahy, Community Neighborhood Services. Summary request. To approve the resolution and instruct the Community Neighborhood Services Department to complete the sales transaction between Nakia Grissom for the totally rehabilitated home at 1500 Leahy, which is part of the city's neighborhood stabilization program through the Michigan State Housing Development Authority Office of Community Development. Ms. Grissom's purchase price for the home is $70,000. Staff's recommendation to approve the resolution and direct the Community Neighborhood Services staff to complete the sale.
Thank you. Could I have a motion, Mr. Mayor, or Vice Mayor?
I think Commissioner German had his hand up before me. I'll defer.
Okay.
Who's that?
I move to approve the resolution and direct the community and the neighborhood service staff to complete the sale.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner German, seconded by Commissioner Hood, to approve the resolution and direct the Community and Neighborhood Services staff to complete the sale of the city-owned home at 1500 Leahy to Nakia Grissom. Good evening, Ms. Bailey.
Good evening, it is. I'd like to thank you all for allowing me to introduce the buyer for our house at 1500 Leahy that has gotten a lot of reviews and a lot of comments and a lot of interest. Nakia Grisham, would you stand? Her mom is with her tonight, and her children, as well as her sister and her daughter. So
Very
I'm
good.
just so glad that they are here to, for you to meet and for them.
And we're excited.
Also, I'd like to acknowledge her lender. Fifth Third is here in the person of Aslan Scott. And our realtor, Katie Pittman, on behalf of Green Ridge Realty.
Yes.
And I am just so pleased that we all were able to work together to get this house sold within the time frame that we needed to. And I'm just happy. I'm happy now that we're almost done. It was almost over.
There we go. Well, congratulations. Welcome to the neighborhood. You're in a unique position, Ms. Grissom. You're moving into a Muskegon landmark.
Oh, yeah.
It's very historic, and I'm sure that you'll bring a whole lot of love into that home and into that neighborhood. And you're one more element into the rebirth of the city and the joy and happiness that can be a neighborhood. So good luck to you. God bless you, all of you kids, and the family, and best of luck. And let me know when you're moved in and put on the coffee. I take mine without cream or sugar, and we'll come visit. Okay, best of luck, truly. Anything from the commission? Commissioner Johnson?
I would just like to commend Anita and Community Neighborhood Services for salvaging that house and putting the time and effort into fixing it up. It is truly a unique property and a landmark for Muskegon. And welcome to Muskegon, welcome to the McGough neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else, commissioners? If not, thank you, Anita. And,
Yeah, I too wanted to congratulate Anita and Mrs. Pittman and for the wonderful job you guys have been doing selling our homes.
Thank you.
And congratulations to Kia. Yes, thank you.
very good.
Go Big Reds. Can I just say this? What was told to me, her daughter attends Muskegon High School, and so the house sits right on the corner of Grand and Leahy. And when you look out the dining room window, you can see Muskegon School. And she said one of now I'm quoting this from hearsay, but to be able to look out the window and watch your daughter walk home from school is, that was exciting to me because I've always liked to stand in that particular part of the house and look out and see the entire neighborhood from that corner. But it is a beautiful property, and if any of the commissioners haven't had a chance to see it, I would certainly love to take you by and show you the property before we sell it to her, which will be shortly in the next 30 days. So feel free to contact me if you'd like to see it.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Questions?
Just one thing, because I noticed on the online, some people were questioning the amount of money it took to rehabilitate this property, and I will just say that normally you want the cost of rehabilitation and the cost of sale to be relatively close. But when you have a unique property, and I'm only aware of one other house with this floor plan in Muskegon County, it's in Roosevelt Park, and there's another one that's somewhat similar in Norton Shores. So you have a piece of architectural history that's very unique in our community. I think that puts it at a different level. Also, over the long term, I hate to say this to you, but you're going to be paying property taxes and income taxes, and we're all better off with this being a home that's lived in with a family taking care of it than a vacant lot. So I think it was money well spent, and I welcome our new neighbor.
Thank you.
Anything else? Well, thank you again, Anita,
Thank you.
and best of luck to you. Okay, roll call, please.
Mayor Gallagher,
Yes.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Spataro,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Rinsema-Sibiga,
Yes.
Commissioner Turnquist,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Item B, please.
Qualified voter file, Windows 7 upgrade, new equipment grant agreement, city clerk, summary request. Staff received notification from the state just today that upgrades to the qualified voter file are needed. In order for the state to order equipment on our behalf, a grant must be signed and mailed back no later than April 4th of 2014. The grant agreement is expected to arrive shortly within the mail. The grant will cover the cost for software and computer equipment for one QVF computer. The city will need to pay for the cost to replace one additional computer estimated to be $800. Staff recommendation to authorize staff to sign the documents and make the necessary purchases.
Thank you. Commissioner?
I move that we approve the qualified voter file Windows 7 upgrade new equipment grant agreement.
Second.
It's been moved by Commissioner Rinsema-Sibiga, seconded by Commissioner German to approve the qualified voter file Windows 7 upgrade new equipment grant agreement. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hood,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Spataro,
Yes.
Commissioner German,
Yes.
Commissioner Rinson-Macipica,
Yes.
Commissioner Turnquist,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Mayor Gallren.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. And I know all about the state Windows 7 rollover personally. Any other business from the commission? Yes.
I have just a question, and I don't know whether we can do this or not, but one of the commissioners asked for the P&L from the Walker Arena. And there were some interesting numbers on there, which maybe I don't fully understand, but there were some large expenditures that wasn't even close to budget, like number of employees and payroll tax and something like that. And since we have a pretty good investment each year as a city, could our finance department take a look at that? Maybe there's help that they need in planning that. The one that's really sticks out in my mind, $81,000 payroll tax when they budgeted 34. That seems to be a big miss. We should know how many people you're paying that for. And maybe there's some way that we can assist them in making the operation profitable.
We're meeting with the group tomorrow, and we'll bring that up to them as far as options, how we can work together to help them the best we can.
Thank you. Anything else, commissioners? If not, we open to the public. Mr. Roger Nye, good evening. How you folks been?
Fine.
Good. If you could just have your name and address, please, and you want
Mr. Mayor
to...
and members of the commission.
Okay.
My name is Roger Nye. My address is 1495 Westwood Circle in Norton Shores. And I'd like to speak about the SAPI issue on behalf of a few members of Occupy Muskegon and Save Our Shoreline. We recently attended a presentation by the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality and Couture. And as far as we have heard, this is still on track. If you voted this down, please let me know. But assuming this is still on track, I would like to express a number of concerns. The MDEQ has not been forthright about what's on that site. I asked Ms. Couture flat out whether Doug Melching has been testing for dioxin in these stacks, which are going to be blown up supposedly on April 27th. And the answer was, well, the person we need to ask is not here tonight. This is Heidi. Heidi never seems to be there. And also, they got a lot of information about materials on the site, but they haven't had time to organize them yet. They were saying the same thing 2 years ago. So I do not trust the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality. We have not been provided with any information on dioxin or PCBs in the stacks or on the site. If MDEQ has it, they're not willing to share it, obviously. The stacks are known to contain asbestos. Supposedly, measures are being taken to minimize the harm of that. I'm told that when MDEQ allowed the implosion of the Hooker chemical stacks, they said it would probably not pose a public health problem. Nevertheless, after the stacks were imploded, dioxin was found in subsequent soil sampling where there was none found before. Dioxin is a potent carcinogen. Muskegon has a high cancer rate. Muskegon has a high rate of respiratory diseases. I think these should be considered in view of any decisions concerning the SAPI demolition. The SD Warren and SAPI companies burned more chlorine than Hooker ever did, presumably causing formation of more dioxin residue. The stacks are deemed too toxic to mix with metal scrap salvage and will have to be disposed of separately. For any workers to work on these stacks, they have to have special respirators and protective clothing. Now, I was present for the demolition of the power plant last fall. I brought a dust mask and I stayed upwind. The Muskegon Chronicle minimized the amount of dust that came out of this demolition in their reporting. Nevertheless, there was a substantial cloud of particulates that hit the street line near the plant and floated out over the lake, where the people were out in the Port Princess observing this operation. Now, we did not have any firm word that there was asbestos in that building. We do know that there is asbestos in the stacks, and for reasons I've mentioned, we have reason to fear that there is dioxin and PCBs in the stacks. So we're very concerned that if this demolition does move forward, that it not be a public event, that the public safety requires the people be kept out of the area because of hazardous substances in the air. And that's all about this, but I have another subject I'd like to share. I've been asked to take some action on a subject which is rather painful. Even as we're celebrating Muskegon High School's basketball victory, there is an issue which is being raised about the zero tolerance policies of the Muskegon school system. And it's my understanding that when students engage in altercations in Muskegon Public School, the police are brought in, and all students involved in the altercation are given misdemeanor citations. If this is true, I'm very concerned about it. If it's not true, I'd like to know. And that's about it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Knack.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
We don't always respond, or maybe we shouldn't respond, but I attended that meeting also, as did Kathy, and I want to tell you that I came away from that meeting with a lot of confidence from the MDEQ. And it's easy to say we don't trust this person, we don't trust that person, but they're covering the bases. And I firmly believe that they're not going to let something happen that's going to cause harm to our community. Their goal is for remediation, for redevelopment. And she's a very believable person. The people that also were at that meeting, we walked away and they made a statement, and they don't know that, but she made a statement that there could not have been a better purchaser for this property than Melchett. And I think we're very fortunate in that. And that's a huge piece of property, and if we want to keep on putting up roadblocks, I read about the dioxins from your comments, and I went and looked it up on the web, and there were more pollutants in the air when the Sappy Mill was running than there is now. Dioxins, when in 100% given to laboratory animals, they'll come down with some type of an illness. The illness in a human being won't appear for at least 20 years. And we just can't stop and put up roadblocks. We need to rebuild this city, and we need to offer these kinds of properties for further usage. We just can't let them sit bare. We just can't let rubble sit there. And they've been hauling things out of there all this past week since the weather broke. And I feel very confident that nothing to hurt our community is going to happen with these organizations looking after it.
Thank you. And if demolition continues as scheduled, it will not be a public event. That has been determined. Mr. Fred Johnson, Jr. Welcome, Director, Muskegon County Public Defender's Office. I thought I recognized you.
Good evening. Let me start with good evening. I'm Fred Johnson. I'm over on Bruce Street now. I don't know the name of the exact apartment number. I'm renting a room over there. I'm from Grand Rapids, as many as you know, but I wasn't going to mess with these highways over the winter time, and so I've got a place over on Bruce, and I'll be buying a place in Muskegon soon. So that's my location as for now. And I want to apologize. I should have been here a long time ago. I hope you recognize this. It's a matter of scheduling and not my heart. I should have been over here to introduce myself. I'm Fred Johnson. I'm the new director of the Public Defender's Office for Muskegon County. We've been open since January, and I think we're going to do great things. And the thing that I came to explain to you quickly tonight is the one for which you're getting the flyer for now. We're having what's called an expungement clinic. And basically what an expungement is for people with very minor criminal histories, or short criminal histories, I should say. One conviction, and you've been out of trouble for 5 years. Under those circumstances, the judge can rehear your case and determine if he wants to take and it is here, he or she determines if he or she wants to take the conviction and lift it from your records. Thereafter, when you apply for a job and they ask you if you've ever been convicted of a felony, you can legally say no. If you're trying to get into an apartment building or a home or get a loan, they can say no. If you're trying to take your kids on a trip and they check to see if you're eligible, you can say no. So you can see the great good it can do people to have that minor situation taken off. Now, not everything is subject to be removed from expungement, but many crimes are. And basically, they're for people who've turned their lives around. They've gotten jobs, they're raising kids, they're going to school, they're running businesses, they're looking to get a promotion. Those are the sorts of things that the legislature had in mind to help out with this particular process. It's a once-in-a-lifetime situation. You can only get one event expunged. As I said, certain events can't be expunged. Drinking and driving can't be expunged. Criminal sexual misconduct can't be expunged, that sort of thing. But there are many crimes that can be, and that can be very helpful in terms of helping people move along with their lives. We're offering this expungement clinic on May 3rd over in the South Campus there in the training building. The expense to the citizens will be $75. That's $50 for the crime history check, $15 for the fingerprints, $10 for the certified copy of your record, and we're not taking anything. My office is going to staff this thing, and we're going to put it on. The sheriff is going to provide security, all gratis. We're going to take all comers, and we're hoping that we can get the word out to people, let you know, come on by and let's see if we can help you. Finally, we want to make sure that people don't decide for yourselves. Don't decide if you can or not. Give us a call. We don't charge you. Give us a call. We'll talk to you a little bit about your record if necessary, and then we can help you decide whether or not you can actually participate in this process. We will help you do the paperwork. We'll tell you where you go. We'll help show you who you pay, and when the case comes to hearing and before a judge, we'll stand there and we'll represent you and argue for expungement of your particular situation if it's in Muskegon County. If you're out of Muskegon County, we can help you with the paperwork, but so and all of those other counties have to take care of the rest of it. But this is what we're offering. Again, it's free, and we're hoping that many citizens can take advantage of it and help you go in the direction you're already going in. With that, I thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much, and it's good to see you in person. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak?
I'd like to say something. You know, this is a new office, public defender, and you probably don't hear this publicly often enough, but you're doing a terrific job. I work at mental health, and I serve people who are some of the most vulnerable in our community, and they were not getting adequate representation in the court system before. And this process, I know it ruffled feathers. Some people are still a little upset. But the fact is that vulnerable people are now getting adequate representation. They're getting the legal defense the Constitution says they have a right to receive. And I thank you for your perseverance in providing that to our most vulnerable citizens.
Well, thank you very much for those words.
Thank you. Anything else? If not, Commissioner Hood.
If nothing else, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Who said that?
Mr. Mazzoni,
Moved by Commissioner Hood, and somebody on the right side said second. All in favor? Aye. Good night.
The whole right side of the dais.
I might have